I met up with a dear old friend a couple of weeks ago, and we had lunch and a catch-up. And over lunch it suddenly occurred to me, I should paint his portrait. I mentioned it briefly to him, but I'm not sure he took me seriously. Deep down, I knew I was going to paint his portrait. And coming right off painting the tiger in watercolour from my previous video, I considered doing this portrait as a watercolour. But in the end, I thought, no, it's just too important a task to trust to my novice watercolour skills. So I decided I'd do this portrait in oils. Now, into my research into watercolours, I had learned about various paper types, and I'd come across Stonehenge oil paper, a paper specifically designed for using oil paints on. This was very intriguing. I wondered what it would be like to paint a portrait on oil paper instead of the usual linen canvas, and I thought I'd give it a try. And what you're watching is the result. Before painting, I mounted this paper onto a gessoed plywood panel. I might do a video on how I did that if anyone's interested. Just let me know in the comments below. But anyway, here I am painting on Stonehenge oil paper. It's a very different surface, I'll have to say. It's very dry at the beginning when you've put the first layers of paint on. All the oil seems to absorb into the paper, but it's not too bad. You can get used to that. In the end, I really like this paper. It's just at first, it's the first layer, the block-in layer, seems to be very dry. It's not so easy to push the paint around as it is on a canvas. But that's not such a bad thing on your block-in layer. It's only this feels very dry on the first layer. On the subsequent layers, it feels more like you're painting on a normal canvas surface. So if you can get past that dryness in the initial phase, this is a beautiful surface to work on. It really is. And so you join me here, having seen me block it in on the paper. I'm now thinking about taking things to another level. Okay, I'm starting to get background vibes. I'm thinking of a bluish tone, a grey bluish tone down here, and gradually spreading out into more purplish brownish tones. I'm going to see how this goes. Okay, I'm going to try and improve on the eyes now. I'm putting a little bit of walnut oil over the surface here. So a little note on mediums used. Very little medium used in this painting actually. The initial layers I mixed a little bit of the Michael Harding's Miracle thinner for the initial block in. Just there you saw me putting a little bit of walnut oil as a couch to make the paint a little bit more slippery. That's actually the only place I used that. The only other medium I used, and very, very sparingly, was Gamblin's solvent-free gel. Okay, we're going to do the hair. I'm first of all going to wet it, which will be quite interesting on paper to see how the paper reacts to this. I mean, there is some paint here already, so it shouldn't be too bad, but I just want the surface to be a bit wet, oiled in, shall we say. And then I can start adding on a more slippery, malleable surface. So that's the plan for now. Yeah, you can see there when doing the hair that I've used the Gamblin's solvent-free gel. You can just see it on the top right there. It just helped when it came to paint individual hairs, it made the brush glide over very nicely. And that was very useful there. But for the rest of the face, virtually everywhere, I didn't really use any medium. It's just all paint straight from the tube. And if I did use the Gamblin solvent-free gel, it was a tiny little bit, just to make the paint flow a little bit better in places here and there where I felt it necessary. But most of this portrait is just paint, neat, straight from the tube. Now by this stage in the painting, I'm really loving the surface I'm working on, and I'll certainly use it again. I definitely recommend it. I'd really got into the blending of different skin tones, really enjoyed it there. When you're doing a portrait, obviously that's very important, but the most important thing is getting the likeness. All the time I'm monitoring and making tiny little changes here and there. You notice me here just altering the shape of the nostril very minutely. All these things add up. Any little mistakes you've got, they add up and they can take away from the likeness. And it wouldn't matter how good your skin tone blending is, if the likeness isn't there, the portrait would be nothing. So at this stage, I'm really concentrating on nailing Ross's likeness, getting him to look like himself, which I like to think that I succeeded in. I'm actually quite pleased with this, but you'll see me now doing a lot of finishing touches here and there. Ross is actually a super nice guy, a really genuine person, and it was important for me to convey that in this portrait. I wanted people to know when they look at this portrait the type of warm character that he is. That for me was almost as important as nailing the absolute likeness. I wanted to put that character in as well. You know, I think painting a portrait is a very, very special thing to do. It's a very rewarding thing for an artist, particularly when you paint somebody that you know so well. Ross has been my friend since I was 6 years old. Now that's a very long time. And so I thought it was appropriate for me to use my skills as an artist to honour that lifelong friendship with this portrait. Back to technical things. All of these final touches that you see me doing, it's all just neat paint straight from the tube. I'm wanting maximum pigment density here, vibrancy of colour. I used to rely on glazing for such things, but these days I like that neat paint look. One other technical point I should mention, my colour palette was fairly limited, very limited really for this painting. I used titanium white, burnt umber, yellow ochre, cadmium yellow light, alizarin crimson, cadmium red, quinacridone magenta and ultramarine blue. And the brand that I'm using, or brands, was Winsor & Newton and Michael Harding. Now, I make these videos because I love art. I love to teach and to encourage people and to show them what I do. Hopefully this video has inspired you to pick up a paintbrush yourself, and if it has, or if you've just enjoyed watching the video, found it relaxing or whatever, please remember to like and subscribe because it really helps my channel. Thank you. I've actually just introduced a little bit of burnt sienna and alizarin crimson just into these final touches here, just to give some warmth and vibrancy. done. And it's now time for Ross to get his signature. I hope you like it, Ross.